before we get to the subject matter, I just want to build on a theme that you have pursued throughout your administration, which is collaboration. This building and this event is really the result of a big collaborative effort. The building itself, only 9 months ago, there was no carpet, no furniture, there were not many things. And of course, the city of Boston was part of it, Boston Law investors, but also some businesses and people that have contributed a lot to this. John Hancock was a first contributor. John Hancock was here earlier, but I don't see them anymore. They were a founding sponsor. Microsoft, Kathy Wissing is here. Foley Howard, they were also part of this effort. Suburban Integrated Facilities Management, Chris Pratt is somewhere here, and I want to mention that for the first 6 months of this building, we didn't pay him. And he's stuck with us. So he's a founding sponsor of this building. And then, of course, all the contributors for the furniture, Hayworth, Philips Solar Kinetics, the lights, Idea Paint. So this building is really an effort of a public-private partnership and of collaboration. And also, this building is what it is today because of the incredible team that is behind it. From the beginning, Tim Rowe was part of this team, of the conversations that made this building possible. But now that it's operated by the Venture Café Foundation, Kevin Wyant, who's Executive Director for Venture Café Boston, Nicole Fischera, who's the General Manager for this building, Andrew Singleton, Evans Petrini, and a good body of volunteers, Shaheen, that are making this building possible. We're on the road to self-sustainability, which is quite amazing. And the Math Life Sciences Center, they gave us a grant. So with that, thank you everybody who have made this event possible. Now, Governor, welcome again.
Thank you.
And I would like to, before we get into some questions, to tell us what's on your mind.
That's wide open, isn't it? Well, Carlos, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me and for the conversation. It was billed as a fireside chat, so evidently you still have some construction to do. I want to thank you. There it is. Quite natural. Yes. You must have known I was going to bring that up. I want to acknowledge Secretary Bialecki, who is here, who's our Chief Economic Officer and has been just a marvelous partner and is the Dean of the Cabinet in the Patrick administration and a great partner. And evidently everyone else here has contributed time, money, a chair, an idea to this enormously important facility and presence here in Boston. I thank you for that. I thank you for your patience as well. I had car trouble coming over. So I hope we can spend most of our time in conversation, but here are a couple of things on my mind that are apropos, not just of our conversation here, but really I think our present and our future in the Commonwealth. And it's very much about what some of you may view as a hackneyed term when I say innovation, but I'm going to tell you why I think it is our edge. There are some 300 colleges, universities, research institutions, teaching hospitals within 90 minutes or 2 hours of where we're sitting. It's one of the most incredible concentrations of brain power anywhere in the world. You're all smart people, you know that. But at a time when the global economy is in the midst of a knowledge explosion, this is a huge edge for us. It's huge. And it's digital technologies, life sciences, biotech, it's clean tech, it's precision manufacturing. But it is also, and that's enormously important, and by the way, those are the sectors that had us roaring out of recession. We're at a 25-year high in employment, having gained back 2 years ago all the jobs we lost, in number, I want to be clear about this, in number, all the jobs we lost in the recession, and growing twice as fast as the national growth rate. But that culture of innovation and entrepreneurship, I also think, Tim and I have talked about this, I also think is an answer, you and I have talked about this, is an answer to poverty. You know, how you spread this attitude out beyond the innovation district in Boston, beyond beyond Cambridge Square, out into other neighborhoods in the greater Boston area, to other communities in the Commonwealth, is a really, really interesting opportunity, it seems to me. And also, while I'm talking about out, the importance of looking out, not just in, of looking out beyond Massachusetts to other parts of the country and other parts of the world, is a comparatively new thing for the business community, I think, to think about as a community. And is an enormously important thing to do, because it's happening in other parts of the world. As you know, we traveled together to Mexico. Missed it, man. It was great. Tim's been to a number of, we were in Tokyo last year, and or this year, or whatever it was, in Israel. We've been traveling, I think as many of you know, to places where the innovation culture is compatible with our own, and where the emphasis on education, on innovation, and on infrastructure is, again, similar to what we're trying to do. And very much carrying the message that this can't be just about what we buy and sell more of to and from each other, but the things we can build together. To your point about collaboration, which is a very different kind of attitude and approach than I think many other states and a lot of other capitalists are bringing to those markets, and I think that's contributed to our, I know it's contributed to our growth in jobs and in ideas and opportunities. So those are a couple of things on my mind.
Thank you, Governor. So you touched on many of the things that maybe I won't have to ask you. If I, Tim, by the way, was saying that probably I'm going to have to be arrested after this thing because we're sharing so many ideas with the rest of the country. It's a great thing. State secrets. Anyway, Governor, if I recall correctly, the first time that everybody was surprised and got your attention around innovation was when you announced the $1 billion Life Sciences Initiative. But it's been a long road from that. That led to the creation of the Mass Life Sciences Center. We are a beneficiary of that. The Renewable Energy Trust was transitioned into the creation of the Mass Clean Energy Center. The Mass had for Performance Computing Center in Holyoke. Seed funding for Money Challenge. The trade missions. And so you've been really a great champion of these, not only in those big ways, but also by showing up to places like these, to the 12 by 12 dinners and others. So
I always feel overdressed when I do it too. I can't believe you have a tie on today.
I understood good jeans. So how did you, tell us about that road. How did you come to embrace innovation as one of the pillars of the Commonwealth's development strategy?
Well, we're listening first and foremost. I mean, I'm not the first to notice that we have all these research institutions and universities and so forth. But I think the idea of celebrating the commercialization of ideas that come out of those facilities is that's not original. That came from you. You told us to pay attention to that. The notion of encouraging, the one true power a governor has is the convening power. You understand what I mean? Most people return a governor's call, come to a meeting, you laugh. Who knew, right? Most people will return a governor's call, come to a meeting, the governor convenes. You mentioned the High Performance Computing Center. Do you all know about this out in Holyoke? So we have the fastest high performance computing center east of the Mississippi. It's in Holyoke, Massachusetts, and it's a collaboration of state government, 5 or 6 universities, 3 or 4 companies. Microsoft is in, EMC, I think as well. I know as well, I think Akamai as well. And they came together, we came together. It was a conversation actually the president of MIT's home over breakfast with a couple of the universities, talking about how no one of them, they all needed this capacity, particularly with big data coming in. They needed this kind of capacity, but no one of them could justify the expense on their own. And even today, I had a conversation with the president of MIT about the fact that it surprises them that the universities are working with each other, right? This whole notion, this is tradition, I think, was you hoard your knowledge, you hoard your research, kind of keep it to yourself. You have your discovery, and then you reveal it to the world. I mean, one of the things that's happening over at the Cambridge Innovation Center, Tim, that he helped sort of open my eyes to, is that the fact that folks are together in one place, problem solving together, has its own energy, and you can capitalize that energy. And I mean in financial terms, not just in sort of metaphysical terms. So it's not like these ideas are mine. We're just listening. And I don't think that government can or should presume to substitute for the private sector. But when government can partner in that same spirit of collaboration with the private sector, the entrepreneurs and the established companies and the companies in between, and the sectors where we have the opportunity to have an edge, which comes back to the brain power we have, then why wouldn't we do that?
Our innovation economy, Governor, is heavily concentrated, as we all know, in eastern Massachusetts, within greater Boston. But there are great regional economic disparities throughout the state. And you are governor for the whole state. How has your administration approached this challenge in terms of innovation, for example, on gateway cities?
Yeah. So, really important question. I'm going to push back gently on the premise. It's concentrated in the greater Boston area because you all know each other and talk to each other and believe yourself to be the center of the universe. And by the way, I kind of think that too, but for example, precision manufacturing is exploding in the Pioneer Valley. And of course, it comes from a manufacturing foundation in the Pioneer Valley. Is quite different from eastern Massachusetts. But I think the formula for us in eastern Massachusetts is also applicable or presents similar opportunities in other parts of the Commonwealth. We have universities in other parts of the Commonwealth, particularly in the gateway cities, in the places where we don't. We've been urging universities to come in. So, for example, UMass has just established a presence in downtown Springfield, right? Huge. And the collaboration we're trying to encourage between UMass in downtown Springfield and the private colleges in Springfield, and STIC, which of course is a community college in Springfield, has real potential and has begun to, is that fair, Greg? I think it's already got some traction, but the promise is even greater. UMass, Dartmouth. Should I want to wrap it up? No.
We're doing the same.
No, but I guess my point is that I think that the presence of higher ed, public and private, the presence of local industry that is connected with higher ed is, and I shouldn't say just higher ed, but the whole education stream, but in particular colleges and universities, is a winning formula in other parts of the Commonwealth. We've got to pay attention to cultivating it and to tailoring the strategy so that it responds to the unique characteristics of different parts of the Commonwealth. Nanotechnology, for example, up in Lowell, that's a real center in the same way that precision manufacturing is in Western Massachusetts. So I think there's some more work to do on that. And I think the next governor has a plan very much about that kind of regional specific tailoring, and I think she will do a great job implementing it. I know this is a nonpartisan.
Sort of. What lessons, Governor, can you share about the most fruitful role of state government in support of the innovation economy? You already mentioned convening.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that
So
comes to mind?
maybe the way I answer that is to tell you something I'm anxious about going forward, and maybe convening helps. So there is a when policy gets done on Beacon Hill, and the leadership in the legislature and the governor's office convene the business community, in quotes. It's the folks, it's not you, I guess is the way I put it. You know, the chamber and AIM and you may be members of those organizations. They're great organizations. They've terrific leadership who have been great partners with us on many things. But they aren't necessarily thinking about the character of what our they're not necessarily thinking about what our commercial character is becoming, let me put it that way, or the commerce. And there's got to be a more robust conversation and frankly collaboration among the energy represented here and in Kendall Square or in Springfield or what have you, and those large legacy employers. You know, they're like Microsoft gets it, Google gets it, right? Because they're in the space. But we need we need everybody else to get it too. And so, for example, we had a go round, as you all know, about the non-compete laws. And I proposed what I proposed again because I was listening to all y'all. And the pushback was hard from, I don't know quite what I'm trying to, sort of the establishment company. Interestingly, one of those establishment companies has a presence in California, and they're booming, which has no non-competes. No problem there, but somehow a problem here. And can I just say, one of the lessons in that experience was that we were kind of pushing a point that we had heard about the sort of standard list of non-negotiable demands from you, and there were non-negotiable demands on the other side, and in fact there was an answer in the middle. And nobody was willing to come there, neither side was willing to come there until the legislature was out of time. It would have been a really beautiful thing if there was a natural vehicle and a better established set of relationships among and between the sectors I'm trying to describe, where that conversation could be had, and we could kind of work out something before we go to the legislature and say everybody is on board or everybody can live with this. And I think that's a lesson for all of you. I'll be doing something else soon. And by the way, I'm looking for a job. So.
Well, I want to remind you that you have an offer to become a Peace Corps volunteer in Mexico.
Thank you. Well, I'm looking for a little more compensation than that.
The last question before we open it up. There was a memorable moment in Mexico, actually, at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs at the launch, when we started talking about education and entrepreneurship. And you, in a very inspired way, described how education lifted you from poverty. What is the role of education in this conversation about the innovation economy, and how do we make sure that in the same way that education got you to where you are today, the innovation economy can be inclusive and create opportunities for all?
That's a wonderful question. So I happen to view innovation as the next industrial revolution. And I think it's a cultural thing. The innovation there's a lot of innovation happening in Massachusetts classrooms right now, but there could be a lot more. And one of the things that makes it possible, I think, Well, one of the things we have to pay attention to, beyond the, length of the school day and year, which is based on farming, nobody farms, or how to get more interest in STEM education at an early age, and frankly, how to make that fun, is getting more of you close to more students so that they can imagine what it might be like to be you. When I was growing up, I didn't know anything about being a lawyer. I decided to go to law school because I was exposed ultimately to lawyers. And forget about being a business person. I was exposed to being to people who had been in business, and that's what made me interested in getting into business. I didn't have all those answers before I became those things, but I had a frame that made it possible for me to get a mental image of what that might involve. And so I think, yes, we have to do, as I say, the stuff around school resources, the experimentation in schools, the STEM education. So we've been working on all that. We've made a lot of progress on the TIMSS measure. We are second or third in the world in math and science proficiency in Massachusetts, in the elementary and secondary levels. But what a difference it would make if there was an entrepreneur who even knows how to pronounce entrepreneur. If you showed up in the classrooms, and when I say you, I mean those of you in the innovation economists, you showed up in the classrooms or had arranged for classes to come down and see District Hall or see your companies and so on, to kind of get a feel for what that is like. Because you go into a great company, whether it's 2 people or 200 people, that's doing something exciting, and you can feel that excitement. You feel that energy, even before somebody describes entirely what they're doing in terms that you can understand. I think that's high impact. It's a small thing, but it's big impact.
Thank you, Governor. Questions?
So I'll start by just a reflection, building on what you just said. Early in your gubernatorial career here, you spoke to a number of us, and you inspired me and CIC in just this area, trying to reach out to kids in schools and introduce them to this community. I think the way you put it was, you said, you've got to imagine this kid, jeans hanging down a little bit too low around the legs, kind of looking down, has never been in a professional environment, hasn't had the experience of looking people in the eye and talking directly to them. And you said, give them 2 weeks in a professional environment, a little help figuring out how to interact and connect. They'll get it, it's not that hard, and that will change the course of their career for the rest of their lives. And that when you said that, it was really impactful on me, and we went and we built what in Cambridge is now the largest program for high school students to come out and work with any kind of business at all. We built a big program. Harvard University is a bit bigger, but they're not really a business anymore. We're connecting kids from schools to startups. We found that you'll typically have in these small companies, you'll have the CEO, maybe 2 other people, the dog, and then the kid comes, one of these kids comes in from high school, and we work with kids from disadvantaged backgrounds, kids that were going through the programs, there are a number of programs in Cambridge to try to get them kind of on track. And the joke, which isn't really a joke, is that this kid would come in and would say sort of, what do you want me to do? And the CEO would say, well, we think we have sales in the U.S. and Europe figured out. You need to take to Asia. These are real responsibilities, not and so it's exciting to really make this become a reality, and I think it's making a difference.
Well, and kids step up to higher expectations.
They really do. And a lot of those kids got hired after that internship, so it works. So my question is, there are a number of people in the audience from other cities. We have people from Ohio, I think there's a Milwaukee group, there's a large group in St. Louis, really trying to share ideas about how to bring us all up. Should you find yourself in a position where you needed to think about all of the United States, and
I was a beat late. I wasn't quite sure where you were going.
And we're thinking about how to grow innovation across the country. Do you have any reflections that you might share with us about, particularly for these other cities here, what they might learn from Massachusetts?
Well, you know, who's from out of town? So I might put the question to all of you. Tell us some of the things you're doing that we ought to know better.
Dennis, this guy right up in front, he is economic development in St. Louis.
On the spot then, she knows too. You sure know this was coming down.
Exactly. Gee, what would I tell you that you could do better?
What's working for you?
Well, you know, we've had this discussion over the last 2 days that change really occurs locally. And on a national level, I mean, we see the gridlock. On the state level, I mean, I'm from Missouri. We have a lot of gridlock there. At the local level, in the cities, is where it's really happening. And the cities have to be more entrepreneurial because they've got to serve, they've got to put boots on the ground and do something because cities have challenging problems. So, you know, I almost think, thinking on a national level with you, that I think that we need to have some new thinking around mobilizing cities to work for grassroots changes together, connecting together. You know, we've got to push it up because the top isn't pushing it down. So there's got to be a way to get around the gridlock. I agree with you about your Industrial Revolution reference. However, I'm old enough to have lived through the 1960s, and I remember how this nation came together about putting somebody on the moon. And it captured everybody's imagination. It captured the imagination of all the states across the country when it came to education. The scholarships that were available to put kids, boys and girls, into STEM fields because we felt threatened from outside. Though I agree with you that the innovation movement that's going on is really, you know, this is today's moon launch. It's putting somebody on the moon. It's coming about because of world competition in a new way. It's not Russia, it's the rest of the world. I don't think that we have been able to communicate that yet to the citizenry of this country.
That's such a great point.
You know, and I think that we need to find a way to get the legacy industries that have grown fat in this country and are anti-competitive. To be more, you know, to embrace
To get
this.
their mojo.
Yeah, exactly.
Two things. So you for saying. Dennis, two points that you made. I want to enthusiastically agree with. The first is what I hear you saying about the collaboration among cities and in cities with the grassroots. More and more, the lines that divide us jurisdictionally seem less and less meaningful to me.
Right.
The line between local and state, between private and public, between grassroots, those lines. I mean, I understand them. I understand their origins and their purposes, but sometimes I think they hold us back. And I think the more we can do to blur those lines, maybe the more yeasty the environments we create. When at the National Governors Association, when I was first elected, I think they still do it, but the feel of it is different now. When I was first elected, we had 2 meetings a year, and in each of those meetings there were 2 sessions that were governors only, no staff. And at the beginning, I couldn't tell who was a Democrat or Republican because people were just problem solving and shamelessly stealing each other's ideas. And it was great. It was great because you could be in there and say, you know, I'm getting my butt kicked on this or that, and I don't know how to fix it, and I think I'm going in this direction. Somebody else would say, well, I dealt with that, and this is what we tried. How about this? Here's my person you can talk to, and what have you. It's fantastic. And there are fora like that I know exist within mayors groups and within state legislators groups and so on. I think we got to figure out how to create those fora that have a little of this, a little of that, you know, some private sector folks, some big company, small company, government. And this business of government doesn't have a role in the economy, which I know it's a theme out there. It's a storyline. Let me tell you, in the rest of the world, government is deeply involved in the economy. Deeply involved in the economy. And while I'm not saying I want to be like that, these bright lines don't work anymore, in my. Second thing you said, which I think is so important, is we need a way to articulate a national goal in the innovation space, which I think was the power of putting a man on the moon in 10 years when John Kennedy said it. That isn't about being afraid, you know. I mean, the implication of John Kennedy was Sputnik, right? But without having to say it was Sputnik. That isn't about, you know, oh, this one or that one is coming and the end of American economic exceptionalism is coming. That is more about asserting our capabilities and creating common cause and common destiny. And that is, we are, I guess I'm feeling hungry for that. And I think there might be a real galvanizing opportunity if we could figure out how to come. There were a couple of other out of town. Excuse me.
Governor, thanks for coming.
Matt.
My name is Matt Wolf, and about a month ago, I left the shop to venture out and try and start my own company. And this is a great space I didn't know existed, so thank you for your involvement. Thank you both. One of the things that I've been exploring recently is a company called Y Combinator. Paul Graham started in 2005. It's been an interesting journey. And over the last 9 years, he's been able to attract from 40 to 50 companies applying, coming out to the West Coast, working with them to. Last year, there were 2,300 startups. The problem is the acceptance rate has dropped to 3%. What are your thoughts on that? And have we given any consideration of doing something like a B company or Boston company? What's out there?
Well, let's see. There's Mass Challenge. There's the Cambridge Innovation Center. There's Greentown Labs. What's that? Techstars, of course. Bolt, which is the manufacturing.
Yes.
Yeah. Are they still downtown?
Yeah.
Downstairs?
Yep.
Yeah. It's interesting that I'm embarrassed you don't know more about that. I'm embarrassed, not for you. I'm personally embarrassed. It makes me wonder whether we're telling that story well enough or broadly enough. I mean, Mass Challenge, for example, is so hot right now. They're trying to replicate themselves in France and England and Israel, of course. But to me, the fact that what's the Mass Challenge had how many applicants last year?
No, it was thousands.
It was thousands, I thought.
Yeah.
And they took maybe
128.
128. What does that tell you, and this may get to your question, about the appetite for accelerators like that, incubators like that, and what we should be thinking about in terms of expanding those kinds of opportunities? Now, one of the things that makes Mass Challenge hot, and the others I mentioned, is that is the exclusivity of getting in. You know, that you're hit to win the opportunity to come and be a part of it. But I think we could probably have others where you know, where you had more of an opportunity without jeopardizing the cool factor of being chosen. I don't know if that's the response.
Hi, Mr. Governor. Thank you for coming. My name is David Day. I run the BMAT Fund, Together Boston. We're planning a memorial for Donna Summer in Dorchester. And at Create Mass, you introduced me to Mass Ventures, Jerry Berg, and that was very helpful, so thank you for that. I want to get back to a word you said earlier, which is fun. I want people to have more fun. So I guess when we're talking about innovation, I want to also bring up the idea of innovation and cultural innovation. That is computer programs that make music, Photoshop, Final Cut, and it's really that A in STEAM, right? Is teaching, thinking outside the box about arts, you know. And we have these great cultural institutions, Berkeley, you know, the opera, so forth and so on. But the state, how do we incentivize those cultural institutions to move forward in the technology innovative space, teaching young people cultural tools that are related to technology?
Yeah, what's the it's that time of the day. What's the name and that time of life, by the way? What's the entity just at the edge of South Boston? Artists for Humanity.
They did the art on the wall today.
Okay. But they get this, right? They get this point about trying to bring the cultural community and the innovation community closer together. And they have some wonderful programs for young people who are looking for that way of expressing themselves. And by the way, you should all know, I came to learn this actually before I was governor. There's a lot of great research that connects, for example, music teaching and science proficiency. So that there is a movement out there here in the Commonwealth that says, with all the emphasis on STEM, we should move to STEAM for that and other related reasons. I think, you know, we have great cultural institutions, as you say, and the whole range from the grand to the startup in nature. They are not always a community in the sense that the famous ones kind of live in their own space, and a lot of the startups don't know each other. But I wonder. I won't posit this as a from knowledge or experience, but in this space. But having worked at a company as an executive at Coca-Cola, for example, and at Coke, which is a fantastic company, does business in more places than there are members of the United Nations. When I was there, Coke was at a crossroads, like I think other large companies have been, where they were trying to decide whether the greatest, and I'm reducing this, but whether the greatest emphasis should be on protecting the franchise or on the kind of creative risk-taking that created the franchise in the first place, right? And I wonder whether that is the kind of equipoise that some of the big arts organizations, I'm thinking now in particular about performing arts organizations, may find themselves. The MFA, for example, is very interested and actually taking some chances in how they spread their wings beyond the city and beyond the walls of the museum itself. I wonder, I'm not quite sure how to think about that, if I'm the opera or the symphony, but I wonder if that dynamic is at play in some of those organizations as well.
Craft work at Symphony Hall.
What's that?
We bring craft work to Symphony Hall.
Craft
big German, kind of techno thing.
Yeah.
This is David's big dream. Like, if you get to know him, he'll tell you that at some point. Right, exactly.
So, David, do you know the people over at the BSI?
Sort of, yeah. Yeah, I know one technologist that installed a big speaker system at Tank. I know he's at MIT. He likes the idea, so we're getting it.
Well, I can introduce you to the people who make the decisions, if that's helpful too.
Just to before your final comments, last week there was a big delegation from Mexico here and visiting different innovation sites. And one of the sites that they visited, David, to follow up on what you just said, was Berklee College of Music. I have never been, I have always been curious. It was unreal. What they are doing. One of the professors who gave a talk there said, we don't consider ourselves a conservatory, we consider ourselves a laboratory. And their embrace for technology and in teaching, in creating music, and like this is, how does the rest of the world, and frankly, probably the rest of the state and of the city, other than people like you, don't know this. It was amazing and frankly really inspiring.
It's interesting. My father was a jazz musician. He was a founding member of an avant-garde group called Sun Ra. And he said that. Who said what? You know Sun Ra? Yeah. You know Sun Ra? Wow. So Pat Patrick, baritone saxophonist, and he was a pack rat, and he kept everything, and including he played with everybody. And when he passed away, all this junk, we didn't know what to do with it. And but we wanted it to be someplace other than in the attic. And a couple years ago, we gave it to Berklee. And in part, we gave it to Berklee not just because they were interested in the band and in the orchestra and the archives, but they were actually interested in how to use technology to share it. And it's been fascinating. They're handwritten liner notes from Duke Ellington, from my father's sheet music. It's available now to researchers all over.
Just bring that into Roxbury. Show them. Sun Ra was crazy.
Yes.
Right.
So was my dad.
Any final thoughts, Gordon?
Well, I feel badly there were some hands up we didn't get to. Maybe I'll take a question or two more rather than give a wrap up.
Sure.
Yeah, one and then two.
Wait, we're here? Okay,
Sorry. I thought this was the shy side of
That's
the
the
room.
quiet side. Make my question every time.
What and this, you've been doing this for 8 years, and what I'd like to know is this: we watch, at least I do, we watch India and China, and we say, oh my God, look what they're doing, and look at all the innovation. And if you look at their student body, and at least the students that come here, they're all math and science heavy. And so we talk about the STEM education, or even learning coding in the schools, but it's just kind of talk. Oh yeah, we're going to do it, or we might get to it, or we're sort of making headway. What would you recommend for the next administration to really just say, time to get on with it? We're going to make this happen. What would you recommend? For example, would you make required coding classes in elementary school?
Well, I think first of all, Barlow, STEM is going strong in Massachusetts schools. It can go stronger. And I think, to the point I was making earlier, how we make that fun for young people is something that educators and entrepreneurs are going to have to help us with. And I think that it is entirely within bounds to expand the requirements, but we also are going to have to deal with what that means in terms of the amount of time and the limitations on resources. And I'm prepared to have that conversation. I mean, I really think it's a problem that we have a school year and day based on farming. I really, really do. When we need the schools, in practical terms, to do things whole communities used to do, especially in urban centers. So I love the idea of requiring coding. I love the idea of offering robotics and gaming and the sorts of things that draw young people into exposure to what's behind all that, and how to make that work, and how to think about the concepts. And I hope that that kind of work will continue and accelerate in the next administration. By the way, can I say, sort of goes back to a comment I was making earlier. I don't think that the greatest motivator for Americans, or maybe it's just for people in Massachusetts, is to be told that China or India is going to eat our lunch. It's not because they may not eat our lunch. It's because I think we are hungry for something more positive, and we're in trouble, and so we have to do something. We need something more affirmative in our goals. I'm still struggling with what that is, but I hope you'll all think about it too.
I'm going to throw a question in.
Yeah.
So how can we help you tell the Massachusetts story in a better fashion?
Well, okay. I'm glad you asked that question. Because I think...
This was not planned, right?
I have some strong feelings about it. We stink at telling our story. Now, and by that I mean, you know, we are, we're modest in New England. We think it's bad form to brag. And, I mean, so much so, by the way, when you brag about something, the first thing that happens is the news reports, it's not that good. I mean, and look at the media. Oh, dear. Is there any media in here? Oops. I mean, really, if you are in the big businesses talk about it too. Good news, they cannot get it in the business section. Bad news, great big headline. And by the way, bad news might be, you know, share prices off a hiccup. You know, we made a mistake over here. It's not fatal, but big news. Good news, and I travel a lot, and I've lived in other places, and I've read newspapers, and I've seen the news in other places long enough not just to have an overnight impression. And when something good happens in the business community, it's reported on. Other businesses brag about it and embrace it. And I think we need a little more. We need a little more attaboys and girls.
Any ideas how we can make that happen?
What?
Any ideas about how we can make that happen?
Well, I mean, you know, you could go as groups of business people and talk to the editors of our newspapers. I'm not kidding. I think it's important you do, and I think, you know, don't just go and bitch and moan about how your own IPO didn't get enough notice. Drive up in your Tesla and you're all upset. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you can do some research. It's not very hard, and look at what you know to be true in the sectors where you operate, where you can gather up 24 press releases you know were issued, and compare in that period of time what was actually written about or reported on on TV, and show them that they're not helping you tell the story. And the reason you want to tell the story is not just for selfish bragging. We are creating jobs at a greater pace on more substantial things than Silicon Valley. But Silicon Valley is where it's hit. Right? They got the buzz. Look, they've got January and February too. Don't get me wrong. I get that. But we're gonna have to tell our story too, and we're gonna have to have. You guys are gonna have to tell it, and gals, and brag about each other, and we're gonna have to urge the media to give the positive news its due as well.
So let me respond to that as somebody from the middle of the country.
Yeah. Microphone.
Okay.
Eric.
Is it different?
It's very different. I got to tell you, the way that we look at Boston and Massachusetts, the way that we look at California, the way that the rest of the country goes, and internationally too. I mean, you think you have an inferiority complex, but I can tell you that your press outside is extremely good. And I think we all feel parochial about being too modest. I know we feel the same way in St. Louis because we see a lot of great stuff. But Massachusetts is a benchmark for not just most other states in the country, and even California. I mean, I've got relatives in California, and there's lots of issues they're dealing with there, lots of educational issues they're dealing with there, lots of the same issues that we're dealing with. But I think, you know, that Massachusetts really shines on its own. There are lots of metrics that are being reported nationally and internationally that show that traction that you all have. And I think that you just keep, you know, pedal to the metal. And
this last, thank you for that.
Yeah.
I appreciate the bucking up. It did look like I was thinking. But
it's hard for me to feel your, you know.
No.
Listen, I can't feel that pain.
I know we've got it going on. But it's interesting. So we are first in America in student achievement, healthcare coverage, veteran services, energy efficiency, economic competitiveness, entrepreneurial activity, venture funding per capita. We can go on and on and on. And every one of those is not me, but some independent third-party study that has compared us nationally. You never see that in the news. You never see it in the news.
Well, you don't see it in the local news probably, but it's national.
Well, it's nice to know
We know it. We see it. We understand it.
Thank you.
Governor, I'm being told we need to wrap up.
Stop. One last quick thing, Carl. The group of people walked in just at the end from Poland.
Welcome.
And there's a group from Mexico here too.
All right, welcome.
So these groups are here.
These groups are here because of the things that you've led the state to do.